Hello, my dear friends, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're doing well today, wherever you're listening from. Before we begin, I want you to settle in for this one, because this is not just a story about family drama. It is about instinct, love, betrayal, and that one quiet moment when someone who truly cares about you notices danger before you do. And as you listen, I want you to ask yourself one question. If someone you loved leaned close in the middle of a family party and whispered, "Get your bag, we're leaving," act like nothing's wrong, would you trust them? Because for Maya, that whisper changed everything. Let's begin. I was still holding Grandma Rose's hand when Jake leaned in behind me and whispered, "Get your bag, we're leaving. Act like nothing's wrong." At first, I thought he was joking. His voice was soft, almost too calm, the way people sound when they are trying not to frighten a child. But when I looked up at his face, I saw something I had never seen there in the 7 years we had been married. Fear. Real fear. Not the kind someone fakes when a door slams, or when a scene in a movie makes them jump. This was deeper, alert, calculating. The kind of fear that makes your skin go cold before your mind has time to understand why. I blinked at him, confused. "What?" I mouthed. Jake did not answer. He only gave me the faintest shake of his head and a small forced smile. The kind nobody else would notice unless they knew him the way I did. Then his hand brushed against mine. Lightly. So lightly it could have passed for an accident. But it was not an accident. It was our signal. Jake and I used it whenever we were at a dinner, a work event, or one of those endless neighborhood barbecues where one of us needed a graceful exit. A tiny touch. A look. And we both understood. Time to go. Only this was not a boring dinner. This was Grandma Rose's 85th birthday party. All around us, people were laughing, eating cake, and clapping while my sister Sierra gave another one of her polished little speeches about how none of this would have been possible without Dad's planning. Balloons floated over the patio. Music played from a speaker near the sliding glass door. The late afternoon sun poured across the backyard, catching on paper plates, plastic forks, and the little American flag my father had stuck into the planter by the porch, because he thought it made the old family home look welcoming. And Grandma Rose sat in her favorite chair near the window, wrapped in her pale blue shawl, smiling quietly like a queen watching her court. I should have been happy. I wanted to be happy. But Jake's whisper kept ringing in my ears. Act like nothing's wrong. I slowly stood and gave Grandma's shoulder a soft squeeze. "Bathroom?" I whispered with a smile. She nodded, still clapping gently at something Sierra had said, though her eyes looked glassy tired. Jake and I moved casually through the crowd. I forced myself to nod at people as we passed. I smiled. I even laughed when one of my distant cousins raised his cup and said, "You two sneaking off for wine already?" Jake laughed back without missing a beat. "You know us." We stepped into the house through the sliding door. The moment it closed behind us, the music dulled into a muffled thump. And Jake caught my wrist. Not hard. Just enough to make it clear we were not stopping. "Jake, what's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice low. "You're scaring me. Just trust me," he said. "I'll explain everything in the car." I followed him to the front hallway, where we had left our things on the narrow bench by the coat closet. He handed me my purse, my phone, and my light sweater. Then he scanned the room with quick, darting eyes. No one was watching from inside. At least, that was what I wanted to believe. We stepped out onto the porch. The sun was still out. Kids were running across the lawn with frosting on their fingers. Laughter rolled from the backyard. A neighbor's dog barked somewhere down the street. Everything looked normal in that quiet American suburb way, with trimmed hedges, a red brick mailbox, and pickup trucks parked along the curb. But nothing felt normal anymore. Jake unlocked the car with a sharp beep, opened my door, and waited until I was inside before circling around to the driver's side. He slid in, started the engine, and immediately locked all the doors. That click echoed in my chest. He did not pull away. He just sat there for a second, eyes fixed on the rearview mirror. Then he turned to me and said something I will never forget. "Something's very, very wrong." My mouth went dry. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "It's just a birthday party." "What's going on?" Jake reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone, but he did not show me the screen. His knuckles were pale around it. "I'll explain in a minute," he said. "But I need you to trust me right now, okay? Don't panic. Just sit tight." That was when I looked through the car window and saw Sierra standing alone near the back door. Her smile was gone. She was not waving goodbye. She was not calling out to ask where we were going. She was simply watching us, stiff and silent, like she knew we were not supposed to leave. And that was when I understood Jake was not being dramatic. Something was truly wrong. But to understand how we got there, I need to take you back to the phone call I almost did not answer. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon. I was folding laundry in the kitchen while rain tapped softly against the apartment window. The whole place smelled faintly of dryer sheets and the coffee Jake had made before leaving to pick up groceries. Then my phone buzzed across the counter. When I saw my father's name on the screen, I hesitated. We had not spoken much in the last few years. Not because of one giant fight that split the family in two, but because every conversation with him left me feel smaller. Less like a daughter. More like an obligation he remembered when it was convenient. Still, curiosity got the better of me. I wiped my hand on a towel and answered. "Hi, Dad." "Maya," he said, his voice unusually cheerful. "How are you, sweetheart?" I went still immediately. My father rarely called me sweetheart unless there was a reason. Usually that reason had teeth. "I'm okay," I said. "What's going on?" he chuckled softly. "Well, I wanted to talk to you about something important. Your grandmother's birthday is coming up. Her 85th. Can you believe it?" Of course I could believe it. Grandma Rose had always been older and younger than everyone at the same time. Her hands were wrinkled and soft, but her mind, at least the last time I had really sat with her, was sharper than most people half her age. She remembered recipes, birthdays, old neighbors' names, and every lie my father had ever told. But I stayed quiet, waiting for the catch. "We're planning a surprise party for her," Dad continued. "A real gathering. Decorations, cake, relatives, the whole thing. Your sister's helping organize it, and we thought it would be really nice if you came too." That made me pause. Sierra and I had not been close since we were teenagers. Maybe not even then. She had always treated life like a competition, and me like the opponent she needed to beat. If I got good grades, she told everyone I was trying too hard. If I stayed quiet, she told everyone I was cold. If Grandma Rose praised me, Sierra found a way to make Grandma feel guilty for it. Still, I could not ignore Grandma's birthday. That woman had done more for me than both of my parents combined. She was the one who taught me how to make biscuits from scratch in the old kitchen with yellow curtains. She was the one who let me sit beside her on the porch after school, drinking lemonade from cloudy glasses while cicadas hummed in the maple trees. She was the one who slipped $20 bills into my textbooks when I left for college and told me, "Don't tell your father. He thinks love should come with a receipt." "Of course," I said, surprising even myself. "I'd love to be there." "Wonderful," Dad replied. "It'll mean the world to her." He gave me the details before we hung up, the date, the time, and the location. The party would be held at our old family home, the house I had not stepped into for nearly 10 years. That part made my chest tighten, but I told myself it was fine. It was one day, a few hours, a birthday party. I could endure awkward smiles and stiff hugs for Grandma Rose. When I told Jake later that evening, he looked thoughtful. "Your dad invited you?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes," I said. "I know it's weird, but I can't miss Grandma Rose's 85th. She practically raised me." Jake nodded slowly, though he did not look convinced. "And Sierra's involved too?" "Yeah." "Why?" He leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath. "I don't know, it just feels sudden, like they're trying too hard to make it sound perfect." I knew where he was coming from. My father and sister were not the warm family dinner type. They did not host gatherings out of softness. They hosted them when appearances mattered, so when someone important would be there, or when a story needed an audience. But I wanted to believe this might be different. Maybe Grandma's age had scared them. Maybe the years had softened them. Maybe they were finally trying to patch the cracks they had pretended not to see. People change, right? That was what I told myself. Jake agreed to come with me, though I could tell he was doing it for me. Not because he believed the invitation was sincere. He even booked a small hotel nearby, so we would not have to stay at the house if the day turned uncomfortable. I loved him for that. Jake was careful by nature. Some people might have called him cautious, but I knew better. Before he started consulting for private security firms, he had spent years learning how to notice what everyone else ignored. Exits, patterns, faces, tone shifts, the small wrong details people reveal when they think nobody is paying attention. At home, that skill usually showed up in harmless ways. He checked the tire pressure before road trips. He kept an extra phone charger in the glove box. He always knew where the emergency exits were in restaurants. I used to tease him about it. That week, I was grateful for it. The days leading up to the trip felt strange. I kept imagining walking back into that house, seeing the narrow staircase, the old family photos, the creaky porch where I used to sit with Grandma and watch summer storms roll over the neighborhood. Every memory came wrapped in something sweet and something painful. The morning we left, Jake double-checked everything. Tires, GPS, water bottles, phone chargers, even the little first aid kit he kept under the passenger seat. "You're acting like we're driving into a storm," I said, trying to make a joke. He smiled, but it did not quite reach his eyes. Just being prepared. The drive took 6 hours. We passed cornfields, truck stops, church signs, and long stretches of two-lane highway, where the only thing on the radio was country music and weather reports. We shared pretzels from a gas station bag and tried to keep things light. Jake asked about my childhood, and I told him the good parts. How Grandma Rose used to sneak me cookies when Dad said I had already had enough sugar. How we built blanket forts in the living room on rainy Saturdays. How she kept a jar of pennies by the back door and let me roll them when she wanted to teach me patience. We did not talk much about Sierra, or my father. Some memories are better left in boxes. When we finally pulled into the driveway, it felt like stepping into a photograph that had been left too long in the sun. The old white shutters were still there. The porch still sagged slightly on the left side. The maple tree still leaned over the yard like it was listening. Even the faded welcome mat sat in front of the door, though it looked newer than the one I remembered. But everything felt staged. The lawn was trimmed too perfectly. Balloons were tied to every post. Folding tables had been set up on the grass with matching cloths, and a banner over the garage read, "Happy 85th Rose," in big, cheerful letters. My father came out first, smiling with his arms wide open. "There she is," he said. "My girl." The words landed strangely. He had not called me that in years. Sierra appeared beside him a moment later, holding a clipboard like she was managing a wedding reception instead of a backyard birthday party. "Maya," she said, giving me an air kiss that barely touched my cheek. "We're so glad you made it, really." Jake stood beside me, his hand in mine, his grip just a little too firm. He did not say anything, but I felt it too. Something about all of this did not fit. The moment we stepped inside the house, that feeling grew stronger. Not warmth, not comfort, not nostalgia. Something else, something off. The living room looked almost exactly how I remembered it, only too polished, as if someone had copied my childhood from old photos and made a display out of it. The worn rug where I used to lie on my stomach and color with Grandma had been replaced by one with a perfect cream pattern. The walls were freshly painted. The family photos were lined up in matching frames. Even the throw pillows looked arranged rather than used. And yet, there was a chill in the air, the kind old houses get when nobody is really living inside them. Jake noticed it too. I could tell from the way his eyes moved across every corner, every doorway, every cable near the floor. His fingers tapped once against his leg, then stopped. Observation mode. That quiet part of him always came alive when something did not sit right. "Looks nice," I said softly. "Looks staged," he murmured under his breath. Sierra was already gliding through the rooms, greeting people in the high, bright voice she used when she wanted strangers to believe she was kind. Dad stood near the fireplace giving a mini tour to some guests, pointing out framed photos and family heirlooms I did not recognize. Then, in the far corner by the window, I saw her, Grandma Rose. She was sitting in her favorite armchair, wrapped in the pale blue shawl she always wore on chilly mornings. A little boy played with a balloon near her feet, and Grandma smiled down at him. But something about her seemed wrong. I walked over slowly and knelt beside her. "Hi, Grandma," I said gently. She looked at me and smiled, but her eyes were tired. Foggy almost. "Maya," she said softly. "You came?" "Of course I did," I whispered, taking her hand. She gave me a light squeeze, but her grip was weaker than I remembered. Her skin felt cool. Her cheeks had lost their usual color, and her eyelids drooped like she had not had real rest in days. Jake came over and placed a gentle hand on my back. "Hi, Grandma," he said kindly. Grandma blinked up at him. "Oh, Jack," she said. I looked at Jake. His smile did not move, but I knew exactly what he was thinking. Grandma never forgot his name. Sierra swooped in before either of us could say anything. "She's been a bit sleepy lately," she said quickly. "Doctor says it's just age." I did not like the way she said it. Too dismissive. Too practiced. I stood and looked around the room again. Most of the guests were people I barely recognized, distant cousins, old family friends, neighbors who seemed to remember me as a child even though I could not place their names. But sprinkled among them were a few unfamiliar faces. Men in dress shirts and jackets standing along the edges of the room. They were not laughing, they were not eating, they were just watching. "Who are those guys?" I asked Jake quietly. "I was wondering the same thing," he replied. "They're not socializing. They haven't touched the food either." Before I could respond, Dad appeared beside us with 2 glasses of punch. "You two enjoying yourselves?" he asked, wearing a smile that stretched too wide. Jake took 1 glass but did not drink. "Everything looks very polished," he said. Dad chuckled. "Had to make it special. It's not every day your mother turns 85. Then he turned to me. "Glad you came, sweetheart. Your grandmother's been asking for you." I nodded slowly, but my eyes went back to Grandma, who had let her head rest against the chair again. Her eyes fluttered closed. Sierra clapped her hands. "All right, everyone. Let's get ready for group photos outside. We want to catch that golden light." People began moving toward the backyard. Chairs scraped. Cups were lifted. Someone laughed too loudly near the kitchen. Dad waved and joined the crowd. Jake leaned close to me. "I'm going to step outside for a minute," he said. "Check what?" I asked. He gave me a look that said he would explain later. I nodded. "Be careful." He slipped away without drawing attention. I stayed with Grandma, brushing a loose strand of hair from her forehead. She stirred but did not open her eyes. I could hear Sierra outside directing people where to stand, telling them to move left, smile wider, turn toward the sun. Everything was perfect. The decorations, the cake, the clean house, the smiling relatives, but none of it felt real. It felt like a setup. And for the first time that day, I wondered if coming back had been a mistake. Jake was gone for maybe 10 minutes. When he came back inside, I could tell something had changed in him. His jaw was tighter. His eyes were sharper. It was the look he got when he was putting pieces together in his head, when one wrong detail had led him to another, and another. He walked straight over to where I was helping Grandma sip water from a paper cup. "You okay?" I asked, watching him closely. "Yeah," he said, but his voice was clipped. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Hallway. I looked at Grandma, who was already nodding off again, then back at him. "Sure." We stepped into the hallway just beyond the kitchen. It was quieter there. The music from the backyard was muffled by the closed door, and the house seemed to settle around us. Jake lowered his voice. "I saw wires coming out from under the porch." I frowned. "Wires? Not just power cables," he said. "Small ones, tucked away. Somebody tried to hide them." One ran straight into the wall near the living room window. What would they be recording? I don't know yet. He glanced toward the kitchen, then back at me. But that's not all. There are men stationed near the back fence. They're not guests. They're dressed like they're trying to blend in, but they're not doing anything. Just standing, watching. I swallowed hard. Security? No uniforms, no badges. And I overheard one of them say something about timing the drop. A chill ran down my spine. "That's not party talk," I whispered. "No," Jake said. "It isn't." Around minute 10, natural subscribe moment. And my friends, before I continue, I want to pause here for just a moment. If you enjoy stories like this, stories about family secrets, quiet courage, and the kind of truth that finally comes out when someone least expects it, please take 1 second to subscribe to the channel. It truly helps more than you know. And if you have ever had that strange feeling that something in a room was wrong, even when everyone else was smiling, tell me in the comments. Have you ever trusted your gut and later realized it saved you from something? All right, let's go back to Maya and Jake, because what Jake found next made everything even worse. What do you think is going on? I asked him. He did not answer right away. Instead, he glanced over his shoulder again, making sure we were still alone. I don't want to scare you, he said, but I think something bigger is happening here. I checked the medicine cabinet in the downstairs bathroom. It's empty. No prescriptions. Not even Grandma's. I froze. She takes heart medication every day, I said, and those sleep pills the doctor gave her after Grandpa died. She keeps them in that cabinet. Not anymore, Jake said, unless they moved them somewhere else. I looked toward the living room, where I could just barely see the edge of Grandma's shawl over the arm of her chair. She's not herself, I whispered. She called you Jack. She hasn't made real eye contact with anyone. She can barely stay awake. Jake nodded grimly. It's like they're trying to keep her sedated long enough to pull something off. Just then, Sierra's voice floated down the hallway. There you two are, she said brightly. My body stiffened. She appeared at the end of the hall, still smiling, though her eyes moved quickly between us. We're about to do cake and gifts, she said. Don't want to miss it. Jake smiled politely. We'll be right there. Sierra looked at him for 1 second too long before turning away. As soon as she was gone, Jake leaned toward me again. I think your dad and sister are planning something with Grandma's estate, maybe trying to prove she's mentally unfit. My head spun. But why now? He hesitated. Because of her trust, maybe. You said she turns 85 today. There might be a clause, a medical review, a control transfer. I don't know the details yet, but something about today matters to them. I tried to catch my breath. Jake, we can't just accuse them of that. We don't have proof. I'm working on it, he said. I took photos of what I saw, but I need more time. For now, I need you to act normal until we leave. The words hit me harder this time. Act normal. Because now I could feel it too. This was not just a party, it was a setup. We returned to the living room. Sierra was lighting candles on a huge cake decorated with blue flowers and white frosting. Dad stood beside her, one arm around her shoulder, smiling like a man who had already won something. Grandma's head was tilted back, her eyes half open. I walked over and gently touched her arm. Grandma? She blinked slowly and turned to me. Oh, she mumbled. Hello, dear. She's tired, Sierra said quickly, stepping in. We'll let her rest after cake. Jake's voice brushed my ear. We're leaving after this. I nodded without thinking. The room broke into a shaky chorus of happy birthday. People sang off-key, clapping and smiling, while the candles trembled in the middle of the cake. Sierra held Grandma's shoulder for the photos, leaning down beside her as if she were the devoted granddaughter everyone was supposed to admire. But I could not sing. All I could do was watch Grandma struggle to lift her head and wonder how I had not seen this coming sooner. The cake was barely cut when Jake touched my arm and gave me a quiet nod. It was time. He did not have to say anything. I knew the look on his face, calm, sharp, certain. The same look he had once worn when he spotted a security risk at a hotel and got us out through a side exit before I even understood what he had noticed. I glanced at Grandma one last time. She was slumped slightly in her chair, her eyes unfocused as Sierra posed behind her for pictures like everything was perfectly fine. I'll come back for her, I whispered. Jake did not answer. He just took my hand and led me through the side hallway that curved toward the front of the house. We did not run. We did not even walk quickly. Jake made sure of that. Every move was calm and collected. When we passed my father near the dining room, Jake smiled and said, "Great cake." Dad clapped him on the back. "Thanks for coming, son." That word, son, felt sour in my ears. We made it to the front door without stopping. I could feel my pulse thumping in my neck. Outside, the sun was dipping lower, turning the street gold. The air had a thick, quiet stillness, the kind that settles over neighborhoods right before evening sprinklers turn on and porch lights begin to glow. Our car sat where we had left it in the far corner of the driveway. As soon as the house was behind us, Jake picked up the pace. We reached the car. He unlocked it quickly. "Get in," he said quietly. I slid into the passenger seat and shut the door. Jake got in right after me, locked all the doors, started the engine, and backed out slowly, as if we were only heading out for a quick drive. As we turned onto the main road, I finally exhaled. Then Jake said something that made my stomach flip. "They had sedatives in the kitchen drawer." I turned toward him. "What?" "I found a small pill bottle behind the silverware," he said, unmarked, crushed residue on the cap. It wasn't Grandma's regular medication, different dosage. Stronger, my heart started racing. "You think they've been sedating her?" "I think they've been keeping her just awake enough to appear present in case anyone asked questions, but too out of it to speak up." I covered my mouth with my hand. "Oh my God." Jake kept driving, eyes flicking between the road and the mirror. "There's more," he said. I stared at him. One of the guests was not a guest. I checked his plate, clean, untouched, but he had a folder under his jacket. I saw paperwork sticking out. Signatures, medical forms, some of it looked forged. My head spun. "You think they were trying to make Grandma look incompetent?" "That's my guess," Jake said. "If she's declared mentally unfit, they can take control of her estate, her house, her bank accounts. Everything." "And we were just sitting there eating cake," I whispered. "Not anymore," Jake said. "We're out." He took it sharp right off the main road. "Why are we turning?" I asked. I saw one of those men step outside and start talking into a phone as we walked out. I don't want them following us. I looked behind us, but all I saw were trees, open field, and a narrow road fading into the pale evening light. Then I checked my phone. "No signal," I said. Jake reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small flash drive. "I took photos of everything I could," he said. "The wires, the papers, the pill bottle. If we take this to the police, they'll have enough to investigate." I stared at him. "You did all that in under an hour?" He shrugged, still focused on the road. "You know how I work." I smiled despite everything, but it was a fragile smile. The kind you wear when the world has not fallen apart yet, but you can hear the cracking. Then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number appeared on the screen. "Why did you leave?" I froze. Jake glanced at it. His jaw tightened. "We're going straight to the station," he said. I did not argue. Because suddenly this was not only about protecting Grandma Rose. It was about stopping something before it became impossible to undo. The road stretched ahead of us, silent and endless. Jake drove like a man with a mission, steady and focused, checking the mirrors every few seconds. I kept staring at the message on my phone. "Why did you leave?" No name, no context. Just those 5 words. I didn't reply, I said. "Good," Jake answered firmly. "Whoever sent it wanted to rattle you. Make you second-guess leaving." "Well, it worked," I muttered, hugging my arms around my chest. "Jake, what if we're wrong? What if we overreacted? What if the pills were innocent? Or those men were just awkward family friends? Or Sierra really is only trying to help?" Jake did not take his eyes off the road. "Then the police will tell us that." I fell silent. I wanted to believe this was a terrible misunderstanding. I wanted to believe my sister had not spent months planning something behind Grandma's back. I wanted to believe my father, for all his coldness and pride, would never turn his mother's birthday into a stage for taking away her life. But wanting something does not make it true. Jake pulled the flash drive from his pocket and handed it to me. "Open the files," he said. "See for yourself." He kept a small adapter in the glove box. Of course he did. And I plugged the drive into my phone with trembling hands. The folder opened. The first photos were grainy and fast, but clear enough. Tiny cables snaked under the porch, taped to the underside of the boards, tucked behind decorative paneling like someone had worked hard to hide them. Another photo showed a wire feeding straight into the wall near the living room window. The next image was the pill bottle behind the silverware tray. No label. A smear of pale powder inside the cap. Then came the papers, forms, signatures, medical language. A close-up of a document with my grandmother's name written at the bottom in sloppy handwriting that did not look anything like hers. I stared until the words blurred. Jake pointed at the screen. That one is a declaration of incapacity. It's used to support a conservatorship petition. I looked at him, horrified. You're saying they were trying to take legal control of her? Looks that way. All her assets? Her house, her accounts, whatever is in the trust. I closed my eyes. They wouldn't have done it today, though, I said. Not during the party, not with everyone there. Jake was quiet. I opened my eyes. What? He hesitated. There was a man near the basement door dressed in medical scrubs. I thought he was helping out until I saw him with a duffel bag. My stomach tightened. Grandma's not sick enough for home care. She never mentioned a nurse. I think that was the point, Jake said. They were counting on no one noticing. Keep her disoriented, get the signatures, move her somewhere before she could fight it. I pressed my hand against my mouth. We were the only ones who saw it, weren't we? He nodded. That's why I got you out. I looked at the photos again. The timestamp on them was from less than an hour earlier. My hands began to tremble. Jake reached for my phone, opened the contact list, and tapped a number I had not called in years. Who are you dialing? I asked. He held the phone to his ear. County Sheriff's Department. My heart skipped. Are you sure? Completely. The line rang 3 times before a woman answered. County Sheriff's Department. What's your emergency? Jake spoke clearly and calmly. I need to report suspected elder abuse and fraud. We have evidence. It's urgent. He gave our names, Grandma Rose's name, the address of the house, and a brief summary of what we had found. The woman on the other end asked him to pull over if possible and wait for officers to meet us. Jake agreed. We stopped at a small gas station off the highway, the kind with 2 pumps, a soda machine by the door, and a faded sign promising hot coffee inside. Jake parked near a side fence where the car could not be easily seen from the road. As we waited, I stared at the steering wheel, though I was not the one driving. My mind kept moving between the photos, Grandma's pale face, Sierra's bright smile, and Dad's arm around her shoulder. She always trusted them, I whispered. She thought Dad and Sierra had changed. Jake took my hand. They haven't, he said. But you saw it. That matters. 20 minutes later, 2 police cars pulled into the gas station lot. Jake handed over the flash drive and explained everything again. I added what I could, my voice shaky but steady enough. The officers did not dismiss us. They listened. They took notes. They made calls. Then one of them looked at us and said, "We're heading to the property now. You 2 should come with us if you're up for it." I looked at Jake. He gave me a small nod. And just like that, we were going back to the house I had just escaped. Only this time, we were not going alone. By the time we pulled back onto my father's street with the police behind us, the sun had almost disappeared. The house that had looked cheerful an hour earlier now felt eerily quiet. The music was off. Most of the cars were gone. The balloons moved softly in the evening breeze, bumping against the porch rail like they were trying to get away. Only a few vehicles remained in the driveway. My stomach twisted into a knot. Jake parked near the curb and squeezed my hand. Ready? I was not really. But I nodded anyway. The officers approached the front door. One knocked firmly while the other stood near the porch steps. Jake and I waited just behind them, close enough to hear my own breathing. After a few seconds, the door opened. Sierra stood there in her party dress, her makeup slightly smudged, her smile too bright. "Officers," she said. "Is something wrong?" "We're here following a report of suspected elder abuse and fraud," the taller officer said. "Is your grandmother inside?" Sierra blinked, but her smile stayed in place. "I think you have the wrong house." Jake stepped forward. "No, they don't." Her eyes flicked to me, then to him. "You called the police." Before I could answer, the second officer spoke. "Mom, we're going to need to come inside now." Sierra hesitated just long enough for me to see the truth flash across her face. Then she stepped aside. "Of course," she said. "Please." The living room looked just as we had left it, only darker. Shadows stretched across the floor. Half-empty cups sat on the tables. A knife lay beside the cake. The birthday banner still hung over the fireplace, cheerful and wrong. And in the center of it all, still in her armchair, was Grandma Rose. She looked asleep or unconscious. The older officer stepped forward and gently tapped her arm. "Mom?" Her eyes fluttered open slowly. She blinked up at him, dazed. "Yes? Do you know where you are?" he asked softly. She looked around. "At home. Do you know what day it is?" She paused. "My birthday." Jake leaned close to me and whispered, "She's still under something." The other officer radioed for paramedics, then turned to Sierra. "Where is her medication?" "In her bathroom," Sierra said quickly. "Why? Can you show me?" Sierra hesitated again. "It's just in the drawer." "You're welcome to check." The officer nodded and disappeared down the hallway. At that moment, my father walked into the room. "What's all this?" he demanded, his voice too loud for the quiet house. "Officers, I don't know what my daughter told you, but this is a misunderstanding." Jake stepped forward. "Then you won't mind explaining the hidden recording equipment, the sedatives, and the forged documents I found in the house." My father's face went pale. "Excuse me?" Jake pulled out his phone and held up one of the photos. "This is your signature on a legal deal arranged, stating Grandma Rose is mentally unfit, filed without her knowledge." The lead officer looked at the image, then turned to my father. "Sir, we're going to need to speak with you outside." Sierra's voice cracked. "We were just trying to protect her. She's getting worse. We were going to move her into care. She needs it." Then a thin voice cut through the room. "No, I don't." Everyone turned. Grandma Rose had pushed herself straighter in the chair, one hand gripping the armrest, her blue shawl slipping from her shoulder. Her face was pale. Her voice was weak. But her eyes had cleared just enough for me to see the woman who raised me. "I am not confused," she said slowly. "I am not helpless. And I did not ask to be kept in this chair all day while you planned to take my house." Tears filled my eyes. "Grandma," she looked right at me. "You came back for me." Jake knelt beside her. "We're going to make sure you're safe," he said. "You have my word." Paramedics arrived moments later. They checked Grandma's vitals while the officers escorted Sierra and my father outside for questioning. Neither of them looked at me as they passed. There was no yelling, no big dramatic apology, no final speech, just silence, and some silences are louder than shouting. I stood in the doorway and watched as the flashing lights washed red and blue across the porch, across the balloons, across the small flag in the planter that had seemed so harmless earlier that afternoon. Jake wrapped his arm around me. "They'll face charges," he said quietly. "The documents, the medication, the hidden equipment. There's enough for an investigation." I nodded, though I could barely feel my own body. Later that night, Gramp was taken to the hospital for observation. I rode with her in the ambulance. She held my hand the entire way, her fingers weak but determined, and she did not let go until a nurse settled her into a bed under the soft white hospital lights. "I thought I was alone," she whispered. I bent close and smoothed her hair back from her forehead. "You never were," I said. "Not for a second." Back at the hotel, Jake and I sat quietly on the edge of the bed. No TV, no music. Just the hum of the air conditioner and the far-off sound of cars passing on the county road outside. For a long time, neither of us spoke. I kept thinking about the phone call, the balloons, Sierra's clipboard, Dad's smile, Grandma's tired eyes, the unknown text message on my phone, and Jake's hand brushing mine when he knew before I did that we needed to leave. 7 years of marriage had taught me many things about my husband. But that day taught me something new. Sometimes love is not loud. Sometimes love is not a speech, a promise, or a photo taken at the right angle. Sometimes love is a whisper behind your shoulder telling you to get your bag. Sometimes it is a locked car door, a hidden flash drive, a call to the sheriff's department, and the courage to go back into the house you were afraid to enter. Jake finally looked at me. "You did good," he said. I let out a breath I felt like I had been holding all day. "So did you." And for the first time in a very long time, I felt something I had not felt in years. Not just relief, peace. And that, my friends, is where this story leaves us. Not with shouting, not with revenge, but with a quiet kind of justice. The kind that happens when someone pays attention, when someone trusts their instinct, when someone refuses to leave the most vulnerable person in the room behind. So let me ask you this. Would you have trusted Jake in that moment? Would you have walked out quietly, even without knowing the full truth yet? And do you believe Maya did the right thing by coming back with the police? Share your thoughts in the comments. I truly love reading what you think, especially on stories like this, because so many of us have seen families smile in public while something painful was happening behind closed doors. And if this story moved you, please subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep bringing you emotional, powerful stories about family, betrayal, courage, and the quiet strength of people who refuse to be broken. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Take care of yourself. Be kind to the people who deserve it. And never ignore that quiet voice inside you when it says something is wrong. I'll see you in the next story.